Selam aleikum wa rahmetullah wa barakatuh. Takohemi në emisionin ton të radhës Impact me mua Migena Ballon. Sot kemi një intervistë disi të veçantë, pasi e ftuara jon nuk ndodhet në studio, do të realizojmë nëpërmjet Skype. Ajo është një studiuse angleze, e cila jeton në Angli dhe do të na flas për një grup i cili prej vitesh ndodhet në Shqipëri, është fjala për Mojahedin el-Haq. Ky grup është konsideruar terrorist më herët nga Organizata e Kombeve të Bashkuara dhe Shtetet e Bashkuara të Amerikës. Tashmë nuk konsiderohet më si grup terrorist dhe është vendosur në Shqipëri fal një marrëveshje që qeveria shqiptare ka me Shtetet e Bashkuara të Amerikës. Një marrëveshje në fakt që nuk është bërë kur transparente dhe ne kur nuk morëm vesh arsyet pse ky grup ndodhet në Shqipëri, çfarë përfitimesh ka Shqipëria nga prezenca e tyre dhe çfarë rreziqesh gjithashtu i kanoset nga prezenca e këtij grupi. Zonjë Ann Singleton, e cila do të na informoj ne për këtë grup, është autore e disa publikimeve, e cila janë publikuar dhe nga mediat shqiptare, por më e veçanta është që ajo vetë ka qenë pjesëmarrëse e këtij grupi, pra ka qenë vetë një mujahedine për 20 vjet me radhë. Pra e njeh këtë grup shumë mirë nga brenda, por tashmë edhe fal aktivizimit të saj dhe studimeve të saj jashtë këtij grupi, si pjesë e disa programeve disa programeve kundër radikalizimit të këtij grupi, ajo do të na informojë ne për rreziqet që i kanosen popullit shqiptar. Atëherë, intervista jonë do të jetë në anglisht, për shkak se zonja është angleze. Nuk kemi mundësi që të bëjmë përkthimin në gjuhën shqipe. Shpresoj që të jetë e lehtë për juve kuptimi i kësaj interviste. Atëherë, Miss Ann Singleton është e ftuara jon. Welcome, Miss Ann. We are starting our interview with you. We thank you for this interview and for being with us today. Let me say something that this program that you are invited is Web Portal TV, is a voluntary project, and we are honored by your interview and your presence in our program. Welcome once again.
Thank you.
Now we start. Could you introduce yourself and explain how you got involved with MKO issue and why?
Yes, well, thank you very much for inviting me to come and talk. I hope that I'll be able to explain a little bit more about the Mojahedin and explain to the people of Albania, give them some more information on this issue. As you say, my name is Ann Singleton. I'm actually living in the UK, in the north of England. I am an expert in the issue of the Mojahedin, and I've been working on this for around about 20 years. I've written 2 books. I run a website, and I also have worked as a consultant with the government of Iraq on how to deal with this group. I'm currently helping the families of the people in the Mujahedin who actually are not able to have contact with their loved ones. And that is really my main work at present, is to try and advocate and help those families. I would say, in addition to that, I work on the governmental program in Britain, which is called Prevent and Channel. What this means is it's an anti-radicalization program, which the government introduced a couple of years ago. And it is trying to prevent young people, young adults, from being radicalized and joining in groups such as Daesh and Al-Qaeda and the right-wing extremist groups, Combat 18, National Front. So it's a kind of across the board anti-radicalization program. And I go into schools and colleges and into health organizations And I talk to them about how radicalization takes place and what we can do to try to prevent it and spot it. And I also work as a consultant with what you call the Channel program, which is the de-radicalization program, where people who have been radicalized will get help to get back to normality. So it's kind of like a multitasking, really, what I do.
So this group, MKO, they were considering terrorists by USA and other countries, and now they are not like that. They changed their name. They are not being considered like as terrorists, and they are being in Albania. Why Albania?
Why Albania? That is a good question. Nobody else wanted them. That's the simple answer. That's a harsh reality. Is that since 2003, when the first Iraqi government was formed, the Iraqi government has tried their best to expel this group because they were involved with Saddam Hussein, trained by Saddam Hussein, and worked alongside Saddam Hussein. So obviously the new Iraqi government didn't want them there. Unfortunately, the Americans did want them there, and they offered protection to the group inside their camp, and allowed them to continue their existence. And there was an ongoing battle between the United Nations, between America, between the Iraqi government, what to do with this group. They couldn't stay in Iraq.
Sorry, I interrupt you. Why they didn't want them there in Iraq? They were staying there since 30 years? Or
30
more?
years, yes. They were based there in order to launch attacks into Iran, and during the Iran-Iraq war, they sided with the country's enemy. They killed in Iraq, they killed thousands and thousands of Kurdish people, they killed thousands of Iraqi people. So of course the Iraqis, once they were liberated from the old regime, they didn't want them there. They treat them as the enemy. They are the enemy. Mm-hmm. And what has happened over the past 13 years that the Mujahedin have remained in Iraq is that they have made contact with the insurgent groups. And very recently they made contact with Daesh, and they were actually working in cooperation with Daesh inside Iraq. So it was absolutely imperative that the government there expel them. So, of course, the United Nations, which took responsibility for them as a group of refugees, let's call it, potential refugees, they tried to find countries, third countries, to take them. Some were sent back to places where they'd been originally studying or living, in Europe, in America, Canada. But those numbers were quite few in comparison to the number of actual combatants. It needed some sort of drastic action. So in 2012, Hillary Clinton, who was at that time Secretary of State in America, came up with an agreement with the Mujahedin, who didn't want to leave. She told them, right, okay, we'll take you off the terrorism list so that you can actually be moved to third countries, because nobody wants to take an actual active terrorist group. In return, you will move to this country and basically disband, okay? So that was the agreement. So, of course, Hillary Clinton tried various places. She asked Romania. Romania just said, no, we're not having them, we don't want them. So comes to Albania, and for whatever reason was able to come to an agreement with the Albanian government. And there were money exchanged, there was millions of dollars, of course, paid to take this group. And that is really why they've ended up as a group in Albania. What should have happened, of course, is that they were taken as individuals and dispersed to various countries, Britain, America, Germany, France, they could have taken these people in small numbers, but they didn't want to do that because their assessment, as their security services have told them, their assessment is that this group continues to be a potential threat, a potential danger. As much as they say that they have disarmed and that they are no longer a terrorist group, there is no real evidence that that is the case.
Mm-hmm. So when you describe this group as being fully radicalized, what exactly do you mean by that? Isn't that something which modern Islamist groups do?
Yes, of course. The whole idea of radicalization is that you entice young people and you send them off to Syria and set to kill people, suicide bombers and such like. And so there is a kind of modern perception of what radicalization means. But at the end of the day, the radicalization is really the conversion of an ordinary person who might have kind of quite extreme beliefs, but radicalizing them changes them into somebody who will act on those beliefs. So that you may have people, for example, who sympathize with various groups in Syria, let's say, because that's a current issue, but they would never act on those beliefs. They will say, okay, yeah, well, we support the rebels, we support even Al-Nusra and people like that, but they will actually never get off their sofas and go there and do anything. The process of radicalization is what makes somebody get on an aeroplane and go to a foreign country and take part in a fight. Now, it depends. What is needed in the process of radicalization is that you completely change somebody's mind and their emotions and their feelings towards issues, especially the issue that you want them to be involved in. I suppose the simple word, in a sense, instead of saying radicalization, you can say they're brainwashed. That's something that people may understand better. These young people who travel to the Middle East have been brainwashed. Now, this happened in the Mojahedin 30 years ago. They developed a system of changing people's minds, of actually brainwashing them. So they have an internal system of indoctrination, which is ongoing, and it has changed the minds and the emotions and the spiritual outlook of every single member of the group. So when I say that all those Mujahideen in Albania are fully radicalized, I mean every single one of them is not a normal person, is not the person that they were when they joined the organization.
Yeah. Go ahead. I wanted to add, because we see them in the streets here in our city, we see them, they are moving always 2 or 3 of them. They are always men separated by women or only women. We never see a woman and a man. We never see them as a family. We see them like strange. We don't know what life they are doing. Maybe you are right when you are saying that they have a special system of life, but if they don't have family, we never see them with children. So how can their life be like everybody else? Or how can we believe that these people are normal if we see them training themselves, they are running in our streets for sport or fitness, I don't know why, but they are most of them are like middle-aged, and we never see young people among them. These questions about them, can you make us clear why is this working, or this system, their system of life can be normalized by living in this way in Albania?
Yes, I'll just go back to what I said about the deal which America made with the government of Albania. That deal was that they would dump, and I use that word advisedly, they would dump 3,000 radicalized terrorists into Tirana on the understanding that once they were there, they would be de-radicalized. And that there would be a program put into place, paid for by the Americans as part of this package, in order to kind of dissolve the group, as it were, and get them back into normal life. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. It doesn't look as if it will happen. So that means that the people who are now in Albania are still continuing with this mentality and this kind of organizational structure, which is keeping the group intact. Now you're describing their abnormal behaviour. Anyone can see it. Anyone from the outside, if you know the normal people walking down this street, they will see that these people are just not acting in a normal way. But why? Why are they so different? And why do they want to be so different? Is another big question. The simple answer is that they are acting under cultic influence, this indoctrination, this radicalization. It has an explanation, which is cultic abuse, that they are actually coerced and forced to behave like this. The main characteristics that you'll find of groups like this, and they're not the only group that behaves like this, is first of all isolation. They will keep themselves absolutely, totally separate from normal society. And this is why you see that they live in a camp or in an apartment block, and they close the doors, they shut the curtains, they do not want contact with the outside world.
Yeah.
The other aspect of that is that they won't have contact even with their own families. So their families back at home, whether they live in Europe, America, or in Iran, they are not having contact at all. They are forced to be separate. The kind of internal controls which are imposed on the membership are imposed in order to prevent the people there from thinking and questioning. You know, we've been opposed to the Iranian regime for 30 years. Why have we not overthrown this regime? Why have we not made progress? Why suddenly have we moved from Iraq, where we were close to our enemy, and now we're in Albania? We don't know anyone, we don't know the language, we're just in the middle of nowhere for them. So in order to stop these questions, the Mojahedin leadership have developed an indoctrination program. They impose all sorts of bizarre and unusual and unnecessary controls. One of those is complete gender apartheid. That means keeping the men separate and the women separate. That's absolutely strictly enforced. Another step which was taken in 1989-1990 was forced divorces, so that all the members who were married, all the members even if they weren't married, had to commit themselves to divorce from not only their spouse, their husband or wife, but let's say from their sexuality, so that they would kind of deny any sexual feelings at all. They weren't thinking about families, about having children, and they had to devote themselves and basically love the leadership. So all their emotions were supposed to be channeled into worshipping the leaders. And that is really basically the ideology of the group, is to worship the leaders. Whatever they talk about on the surface or on the outside about overthrowing the regime or having sort of some kind of Islamic ideas, it's all false. The internal dynamic of this group is to basically obey orders, worship the leaders, and keep themselves separate from each other. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things I can explain further about these mechanisms.
You have said you work with the families of people inside MKO, and they are very keen to visit their relatives in Albania. Yet this organization have said that the families want to destroy the group. Why do the families try so hard to interfere with this organization?
Yes, if you talk to the Mujahedin themselves, they'll tell you that yes, the families are coming here from Iran, they're going to destroy us, their only aim is to disintegrate our group and they want to destroy us. And this is nonsense. The people who are traveling, who traveled to Iraq, I mean, even as early as 2003, when the country was in absolute chaos, it was, the worst war zone possible, the families of the people inside the Mujahedin were at last able to travel to Iraq and to the camp and try to find their loved ones. And, brothers, sisters, sons and daughters, and these are grown-up people. When I say children, the children of these people, I mean, they're talking about 50, 60-year-olds. That means the parents are in their 70s and 80s. And the idea that these old, elderly, dying people are going to come there and destroy the Mujahedin is completely fictitious. The reason that the Mujahedin have created this kind of narrative, that's this story that they're coming from Iran, they're coming from the regime, is to frighten the members, to frighten them into refusing contact. And this sense of fear is part of this radicalization, this indoctrination that I was talking about before, that they isolate themselves, and so everyone inside the organization is okay, and everybody outside the organization is the enemy. Now, one of the best ways that they have developed to keep this fear going is this kind of idea that the Iranian regime is on the doorstep, waiting to get them. Actually, anywhere they go, there will be somebody from Iran going to try and kill them. So, of course, when the families arrive at the gates of the camp in Iraq, they say, well, these people are from the regime and they're going to kill you. And it is actually for the internal control. It's really not aimed at the families as such. They don't care about those, but it is. And so the families have really no choice. They this is my son, my daughter, my uncle, my sister, my brother. Why am I not going to go and rescue them? Of course I have to go and rescue them. And now that they are in Albania, it's become slightly more difficult because obviously it's further away. They don't have the language. It is a challenge, but they will come and they will try to make contact with their loved ones. They will try to rescue them, help them, and get them back into a normal life again.
Can any one of them get out of this group if he wants, voluntary? Be an Albanian, marry here maybe, and can he make a normal life? Is he allowed?
They're not allowed. I mean, they can if they can leave, because we have, over the years, many hundreds have left. There are probably more former members now than there are actual members. So, people do leave, but it's very, very difficult for them. The controls imposed upon them. In fact, they are living in Albania now as if they are in a prison. And they are, it's not only that, but they are, in modern parlance, they are slaves because they are forced to continue with their activities. You mentioned at the beginning that these people are 50, 60, 70 years old. There's no young people there, and yet they are training. They're running down the streets. And you think, well, what are they training for? Because there isn't going to be any guerrilla fighting. This is Albania. It's Europe. It's not a war zone for them to be training. These controls are there to keep them inside. However, if they are de-radicalized, there is nothing to stop them from being normal people again. If you can, the de-radicalization program is designed so that it will bring back to life the authentic, the original feelings and thoughts and beliefs of the person, so that they can, be as they used to be. as much. I mean, obviously there's been years and years of living differently, but they don't change as people. Their character doesn't change, their personality doesn't change, their feelings are all suppressed. So if they are de-radicalized, then that is something that they get back their normal self. One of the main the key to unlocking this de-radicalization are the families. Because once a person who's been living in isolation, not allowed to get married, they've had their children have been taken away from them, they're not allowed to have children, and they're living just as little soldier units. Once they get back in their family, you find that they very, very quickly become themselves again. They quickly feel that love towards their mother and father and their siblings that they had buried deep, deep inside them. It doesn't take that long for it to come back again.
In fact, we are surprised here in Albania because we have Wahhabi radicals who have gone to fight in Syria, and our government jails them. But these Iranian jihadists take a special treatment. Any idea why our government and the Americans have double standards on Wahhabi and these Mujahid group? Because the Albanians are being jailed because they go and fight in Syria, and they are radicals too. And this group is radical, as you are saying, and they have special treatment, and they are not going in jail, and they have this special program. And living free in Albania.
I understand this completely. This is a very complex kind of situation, and it's very puzzling for many, many people, and has been for a long time. You can understand. We have the same thing in the UK, that if somebody comes back from Syria, they're not just sent home and say, okay, right, go home and everything's fine. They will be brought in for questioning. They will perhaps be arrested. They will be.
We have some people in jail already.
Yeah. So this is fair and right, because you must protect society. Now, the Mujahedin have a long history of deception, and they are able to pretend and to lie and to convince people that they are either not a danger or they're not as they are presented themselves. So they are. I'll give you an example. In 2003, Iraq, President Bush quoted the Mujahedin. He said, the Mojahedin Khalgh in Iraq is one of the reasons that we are going to invade the country and get rid of Saddam Hussein, because it's a terrorist group. So they were actually one of the reasons to go and invade Iraq. When the troops invaded, American and Allied troops invaded Iraq, the Mujahedin somehow convinced the American soldiers who arrested them that they were on their side, and that they sent their English-speaking members who were educated in America and Europe, and they would speak to the soldiers and say, oh no, we're against the regime, we're with you, we support America. And so they gave them protection. Now, this is behavior which has continued throughout the history of this group. They will absolutely change their appearance, change their mind, and kind of integrate themselves into whichever society, whichever political environment that they are living in. They are the ultimate parasites, let's say.
So you are saying that they are good radicals, and these Albanians that are radical, they are not good for America?
Well, that is absolutely the case, that America sees the Mujahedin as good terrorists. They're our terrorists. They belong to us because they're doing what we want. They're anti-Iran, that's fine. We don't mind. And so they will happily allow them to continue their activities. Now, it's up to the Albanian government, isn't it, now, to say, well, hang on a moment, they're not in America. If this group, which really are terrorists and they're training actively in the street, if they do anything, if they suddenly change their mind and say, okay, well, actually, we're not on the side of Albania, we're going to go and do something else, and they assassinate one of your ministers, well, you can't turn around and say, oh, we didn't know who they were, we had no idea, nobody told us they were like this. Everybody knows who they are. Everybody knows, and everybody knows that they're not trustworthy people. As a group, they're not trustworthy.
They are a danger for our country. Should we be afraid of them, that America can order them to do something here, or they by themselves can do something dangerous here? Because this is all mysterious for us.
Yes, I think that you have to treat a group like that as dangerous, because for one thing they're all radicalized, and until you de-radicalize them, they are a danger. But in terms of their behavior, okay, there are many levels to this danger. One is, first of all, that in this very simple sense, holding a group of anti-Iran terrorists in your territory, in your city, means that you cannot establish normal relations with Iran or Iraq or any other country which views this group as a terrorist group. So that's the first thing. So as long as you don't want to, as a country, have any dealings with the rest of the world, that's fine. But otherwise, this group is very toxic for you as a country. The other aspects of this danger are that this, as I explained before, the group has been trained by Saddam Hussein's Republican Guards. These are the most kind of elite and dangerous parts of his repressive infrastructure. So the Mojahedin they're expert at terrorism, terrorist activity, bomb making and such like, but also in intelligence work. So, each member will have 2-3 passports. They will be able to change their appearance. They'll be able to speak differently to different people. And for this reason, they are able to integrate themselves into, for example, the gangs which are involved in drugs and trafficking.
We have some young people attending their activities. They try to recruit them. We have politicians that take part in their congress in Paris and these things. They are trying to recruit people, I think, here.
Of course they are, yes. They just recently we heard that one of the leading members of the Mojahedin who travelled from Paris has told the membership, we own Albania. We are in control of what happens in Albania. We have bought some ministers and some officials. So they're already boasting that they've actually corrupted the Albanian governmental system. How true that is, it's up for the government to explain to the people, for people living next to these terrorists. Why are you tolerating this group? Why are you allowing them to continue with their recruitment, their corruption, and their potential dangerous activities? If you imagine that they are able to link up with other criminal gangs across Europe, they could be extremely dangerous.
They have committed terrorist acts in other countries?
They have. One of the things that they did in Europe was to try to influence the French government and in its approach to them by sending its members to set fire to themselves in public. So they sent, I think, I can't remember exactly how many people, they would set fire to themselves as a protest in London, Paris, and 4 people died. So although it's not the same as a suicide bomb or a truck being driven down the Nice boulevard or into a Berlin shopping centre, it is an act of terror in a public place. It is a violent act. So yes, they are capable of this kind of activity, and each single one of them is capable of dying and being killed for the leadership.
So, what do you think should be done now, and who do you think should be responsible for the radicalization of this organization? How can this be achieved?
Yes, as I said, it should really, it rests on the government of Albania, doesn't it, really? It rests on their shoulders. I mean, they've accepted responsibility for this group. They have to continue, they have to follow this through. But most importantly, they have to get the money from America that they were promised. You know, this is really, really shameful that this process hasn't started. You know, that there are consultation groups and they can explain how this kind of de-radicalization can take place. But the first thing is to actually commit to it. And if you see that the Mojahedin are, as I've been describing, a danger for people in Albania, and I would add to this that people who are in this abnormal state of mind are also a danger to the public. You know, don't underestimate the people that they're walking through the street, they're running through the street. They are not normal people, they are deviants, and therefore we've already had examples of an attempted rape of a small child, or a man walking down the street touching people, touching women. And so, you know, they must be dealt with, they have to be dealt with. They are, I'll describe it as a hornet's nest, a hornet like bees. And you can't see inside the nest, you see the kind of outside of it, but you can hear inside buzzing. Bzzz, there's a danger in there. Now, if you go and hit this nest, all the bees will come out and you will have a big problem. What you need is something that beekeepers are familiar with, is smoke. And you subdue these bees and you keep them quiet and you can deal with them. The smoke are the families. Bring the families to the camp, allow them to meet their relatives, allow them to take individuals and talk to them and deal with them. And this really is the key to beginning the process.
Yeah. After some of your articles were published in the Albanian media, this organization responded by accusing you of all kinds of things, especially being a spy for the intelligence ministry of Iran. How do you respond to that?
Okay, yes. A spy for the intelligence ministry of Iran. I guess the first thing is, why would I spy for Iran and not my own country? I'm English. Not only am I not a spy, but there are credible threats to my life from the Mojahedin, to the extent that the security services in the UK have offered me and my family protection. The anti-terrorist police are very well aware of my situation. So that's just the superficial side of things. The reason that I'm accused of, and I have to say, this is a standard accusation of the Mojahedin, that anyone who criticizes them, who acts against them, who threatens to expose the kind of human rights abuses, the criminal activities, and the terrorist activities that they are capable of and doing, will be accused of being an agent of the Iranian regime, or a spy, or an enemy. Again, I'll refer back to the explanation I gave, that they keep the people inside the organization through fear. It is a kind of, they create what you might call a phobia. And so the phobia, the irrational fear that the regime is going to come and get them, is triggered with this phrase: agent of the intelligence ministry of Iran, or a spy for the intelligence ministry of Iran. It immediately creates an absolute terror inside the person, and they will become paranoid, and they will do anything to escape from that person. The other simple reason that they accuse me of all these things is to discredit me. It's a character assassination. One thing that surprised me was that, yes, just very recently, I because I don't speak Albanian, I discovered that some of your national media, your national press, have actually been writing these stories, that this Anne Singleton is a spy and such like. This just absolutely astounds me because, you know, there is a basic journalistic principle, is there not, that you cross-check your facts, you cross-check your information. Nobody rang me up in England. I'm perfectly findable. Everybody knows where I am. Somebody could have just rung me and said, well, you know, is there any truth in this? What do you think? How do you respond? But no, nothing. So all I can say is that those newspapers which ran those stories were actually publishing Mujahedin propaganda completely.
We're both from them.
Sorry?
Maybe these Mujahedins bought this media to give this news.
They have a history of this kind of behavior.
They are buying politicians, so it's not easy. It's not difficult to buy a media.
It's not difficult, yeah, sure. And so yes, that, you know.
Yeah. Are you afraid to visit Albania?
Sorry?
Are you afraid to visit Albania from them?
Why should I be afraid to visit Albania? Why?
Because these Mujahidins are living here and they consider you against them.
Okay, so I need to ask, if I apply for a visa, is your government, is your country going to say, okay, well, we'll allow this woman in here and we'll allow the Mujahideen to kill her? Who's in charge there? Who is actually in charge? Does the government not recognize this group to be dangerous? And, you know, they call themselves an opposition. What normal opposition does all this activity, the human rights abuses and their...
Do you think they have weapons in their camp here?
Of course they have. Of course they have. You know, how else do they keep their members under control? They have illicit weaponry. Small handguns and such like, of course they have. They have them in Paris. They have them probably in other places, definitely in America. That is the group. That's why they're dangerous. You know, they have no moral, cultural, legal boundaries at all. They are their own law. They are law unto themselves. And a government, I feel sympathy for your government, I really do, because they are very difficult to deal with, but not impossible. And if steps are taken to de-radicalize individual members, to dismantle the organization little by little, separate the leadership from the membership, you know, it is perfectly possible to deal with the group, yeah.
Can I ask you, where they get the money? How they live?
Okay,
because so they are not working.
Yeah, there's two things. First of all, this group has never been self-financing, as much as they claim they have. They took money from Saddam Hussein. They were paid per person by Saddam Hussein. They are known to have taken money from Saudi Arabia, from Israel, from America. They are funded by Western interests, like I wouldn't call them governments, but Western interests, who want to have this group as an irritant against Iran. I mean, I use that word because they're not a threat against Iran. If they could have done anything, they would have done it already. They cannot act inside Iran. They have no support whatsoever, and they have no presence there. So, but they are an irritant because anytime anything like the nuclear negotiations come up, the Mujahedin are kind of brought out like a sort of box of tricks, and they yes, Iran is bad, they're doing this and this. And so, yes, they are funded by Western interests. But what's interesting is that the membership do not benefit at all from that finance. So they are slaves, they are modern slaves. Not one person in that organization is paid to do what they do. That means that for 30 years or whatever, they have been just working for free, and they continue now to work for free. We have information, when I say we, my husband and I, the people who are working on this issue, that the Mujahedin have actually opened little shops, like sandwich shops, kebab shops and such like, and they've got their members working there to make money and to keep them busy, for one thing, but they don't pay them. They just work there. They get their accommodation and their food. And not only are they not paid, but they're so badly treated, and they don't have medical attention. They're not allowed to retire. So even you'll see somebody at the age of 70, 75, they're still working, they're still training, as you say. It's cruel, it's really, really cruel.
Yeah, now that I hear from you all this information, and our public too, we are learning so much about them and their life. We are being sorry for them that are being used like machines and not like humans. And we hope that their families will be allowed to contact them, and maybe this will be the solution of this problem. But in the other side, we feel sorry for our country too, that we are in a big mess with them. These danger people are being here, and we don't know why, and whose interest is. Sure, it's Americans and EU, like you said before. Okay, Ms. Singleton, thank you so much for this interview. We have come to an end. If you don't have anything else to add or to say.
Oh, I think I've just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
I think there is a lot more information. I'm just hopeful that I've kind of been able to convey a flavour of the complexity and the difficulty of this group. But I think the people in Albania are clever enough and wise enough to be able to take it on board and say, okay, now we need to hold our government to account. And the government, they really need to get their act together, because it's not good for them either. So thank you very much anyway for your time.
We thank you. We are being honored by your interview, and we hope your books will be translated in Albanian too, so we can get more information. We know very well that an interview is not enough to get all the information needed about this group. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us.